It's a bonus podcast. The Pacers earned it for this weekend. They beat the short-handed Thunder as they needed to do, but the stories are all about Tyrese Haliburton, the record breaker, the 65-gamer. We got a lot to talk about on today's bonus weekend Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Saturday or weekend or whenever you're listening, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today we'll go a little shorter because there's a lot still to get to this weekend, but this Thunder game ended up being big enough. Lots to talk about the Pacers. They beat the short-handed Thunder, as they should have. Very rarely do the Pacers get these should-have wins. And Tyrese Haliburton had a special night for several reasons that are worth diving into. And a lot of other good stuff happened for the Pacers around the Eastern Conference. All but one game they really cared about went their way. So we will dive into all of that today. I didn't know what to start with here. Oh, I actually should say this. We will start with this. Admin stuff. We're recording every day till the Pacers season's over, including weekends. We'll do another one tomorrow with Wes Goldberg talking Pacers Heat, crossing over before that game, which is just epic on Sunday now. So many implications in that game because the Pacers won this Friday game. It would go a long way in helping the Pacers get to a postseason berth if they're able to win. And you'll hear about that why on a crossover with Wes Goldberg. And next weekend, there's going to be a lot to talk about. Their Cavs game, their Hawks game, where they are in the standings. You'll cover it. You'll hear it all here on Locked On Pacers. Friday night in the NBA. Good news for the Pacers just about everywhere. But the best news for the Pacers came from themselves because they won and Tyrese Haliburton had an epic night. For Haliburton specifically, let's first talk about the assist record. He's in the history books, well-deserved. He had 11 in this game, the win over the Thunder. And it was, to me, like the perfect Tyrese Haliburton breaks a record night. Right, he needed, I can't remember, I believe it was 9 to pass Mark Jackson in this game for the Pacers' single season assist record. It used to, he needed almost all of them, to get there. He needed all 11 to get to 714 to break Mark Jackson's old single season record. And the way the Thunder were defending, they did not have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They did not have Jalen Williams. So they needed to try to gook the Pacers up in a way that would let them play in transition and play more free. And so they were trying very hard to not let Haliburton shoot or score. Haliburton only took 8 shots, fewer than Turner, fewer than Siakam, fewer than Nesmith, fewer than Shepard, fewer than McConnell, fewer than Toppin, right? You get the gist. He was 7th in shots on the Pacers in this game because the Thunder were trying to not let him get going. Well, boy, oh boy, are the Pacers okay with that one. They were spreading it out. They're moving the ball like crazy. And for Tyrese Haliburton, who's been one of the best passers in the NBA this season, he's fine with passing. He had 0 points, I believe, when he got his 10th assist in this game. It was just unbelievable to see how he was spraying it around and how the Pacers were reacting. Yeah, Tyrese Haliburton's 9th assist came early in the third quarter. He got it to Siakam. He had still not scored at the time. He finally hit a 3 with 4:32 to go in the third quarter for his first 3 points of the game. So he had 9 assists before he actually scored in this game because that's what the Thunder wanted. That's how they wanted to defend him. He only scored 8 points in the game, but that also says everything about Tyrese Haliburton and why he has this record. He is a wonderful player. He's a good scorer. At his best this season, he was a 22, 23, 24 points per game guy. He hasn't been that guy as much recently, but he's still a great scorer, still over 20 points per game, still leads the league in assists. And this game said everything about him. Like I said, Rick Carlisle, I think, nailed it after the game. Rick Carlisle said to us in post-game media, Tyrese Haliburton is defined by winning, not by scoring. Haliburton's passing is not just like the guy I used to use for this term is Darren Collison. Darren Collison had a really good assist-to-turnover ratio for the Pacers in 2017-18. He averaged like 6-7 assists per game. He was a fine point guard. He shot the ball well from deep. But all of his assists, or most of them, or all of his passes were just like swing the ball or, okay, here's the next action in the play. Like he wasn't throwing guys open. He was getting the guys to the right spots, That's valuable passing, but he wasn't throwing anybody open. Haliburton's assists are legitimate, great pass setup and action, or perfectly timed in the shooting pocket to make a shot possible that wouldn't have been with a crappy pass, or flashy in the air, or flashy behind the back, or whatever, in a way that actually manipulates a defense and isn't just flair. He does do some of that, but you get the idea. He has value add passing and not just routine passing, is how I would describe it. And that's why his passing is so valuable. And now he's the record holder for the Pacers. Well-deserved. I already think he's the best passer in franchise history. Mark Jackson was a great passer. His back it down kind of style really revolutionized some of basketball play in the 90s and 2000s. It's very fun to go back and watch those games during COVID for me. But anyway, Haliburton well-deserving to get this record. He is a brilliant passer, and I think this is the perfect way for him to get it against a team that said, you're not going to score on us. You're going to have to beat us another way. And Tyrese Haliburton said, okay, whatever. I can do that. I can pass it around you guys. I can get actions going. I can set my team in motion. I can take 8 shots and we can beat you guys. I can take 8 shots and we can crush you guys. Pacers win by 14 in this game. Their lead got as high as 18 in the second half. They were behind by 10 in the first quarter. They cut that lead down. They take the lead early in the second quarter, never gave it back, led the rest of the way. Because once they figured out how they were being defended, and once they figured out what the bench needed to do to succeed, they just rolled. And you can tell that Haliburton was working with those bench units because all the starters had negative plus minuses, meaning they played together. That's not to say they played bad, but meaning they played together, except for Haliburton, who played with the bench, right? His was not negative. So he impacted the game. He impacted winning. He found a way to tear up a top 5 defense. Granted, it was missing 2 great players, but he did a wonderful job to get his 11 assists. TJ McConnell had 10. Those two were working well in tandem. TJ McConnell said after the game, he gets 10 assists in his sleep. I'm very jealous. I thought that was, of course, a fun TJ McConnell fitting comment about Haliburton, but also funny timing on a game where McConnell was awesome with 16 and 10 assists himself. But it's Haliburton's night. He is the official Pacers franchise record holder for assists in a single season. And here's the thing about that number. He's got it now, right? 714. That's a lot of assists. He's not only going to break it because he's going to get more the rest of this season, obviously. I think he's going to break it probably next year and maybe even the year after that. It's interesting because coming into this year, if you listen to the show a lot, you remember something I said about Haliburton is I actually think he needs to be a little more selfish because part of what makes him so good is he's so efficient as a self-creator, and that is the best thing for the Pacers from an efficiency perspective was him creating his own offense. And now that is becoming not the case. Nesmith is developing as a shooter. They have Pascal Siakam who can create his own shot on the team. They just have more options that make sense for them to actually beat opponents without him having to do everything as a scorer. And I think that's going to make him a more natural passer next year. And his passing numbers have been good since the All-Star break. The assist numbers haven't been there because the team hasn't shot it as well. But as he continues to get better and read the game, he won't need to be as much of the self-creator type, especially if they continue to add talent to this team. And he is a worthy assist record. And I think not only is he going to continue to add to his 714 this year, exactly one ahead of Mark Jackson's 1998 season, but I think he'll probably get to 800 in a season, assuming health. I mean, he was well on his way this year. 11 a game would get him over that for sure, which is his current season average, but that requires health. But I think if he can get it closer to 12, that would give him more wiggle room. I bet he gets an 800 assist season with the Pacers. For now, he will sit with this record, which he earned. And that's not the only thing that Tyrese Haliburton got to celebrate on Friday night. It was game 65. He played enough minutes. He is eligible for All-NBA. And I got some shocking replies when I shared that he made it. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the finances, why I think some people said some stuff that was very not right as we continue here on today's Locked On Pacers. But first, we need to talk about FanDuel. Sports calendar is loaded right now. Baseball back, the tournament, NBA and is going. FanDuel is making it even more exciting to get in on the action right now. New customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That is $200 you can use to bet the tourney, MLB, NHL, MLB, and so much more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make your first bet a big win. That's on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Remember, FanDuel.com/LockedOn. And we are back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day on the weekends. Check out Locked On Heat, Locked On Sixers, Locked On Knicks, Locked On Magic, Locked On Cavs, all the teams the Pacers are potentially trying to catch in the standings, or Locked On Thunder. Rylan Stiles, I believe, is going every day now that the Thunder have clinched their playoff berth for the rest of the season. He might not be doing it till starting next week. I did talk to him about this, and by talk to him, I mean I saw him say he was going to do it too. Okay, Tyrese Haliburton in this game. He entered the day. Let's get some technical stuff out of the way. He entered the day having played 64 regular season games. This game was his 65th regular season game. That sounds great. Sounds like he made it to 65, but you have to play 15 minutes for it to count. You really have to play 20, and you get 2 exceptions where you have to play 15 minutes in a game for it to count as a regular season game, which matters because in the game Haliburton hurt his hamstring against the Celtics, if you remember, back in January. He only played 13 minutes. So that game actually didn't count towards his 65 games. So he really entered the day with 63 regular season games. In this game, he did make it to 15 minutes. He smoked it. He played 35. He hit 15 before halftime even happened, which meant that was his 64th regular season game. Why did he make it? Because if you forgot or you haven't been paying attention, the in-season tournament finals game did count. So he has an extra game that didn't count for stats, but does count as a game played for his standing. So Tyrese Haliburton has reached the 65 games threshold. He's officially eligible to make an All-NBA team. Well-deserved honor if he does make it. I think he should, and I'll explain why in a second. And I think it'll be easy for everybody to understand at the 65-game thing if he just plays in one more game, and then he'll have 65 regular season games above the threshold. They play Sunday, then they have 3 more games. We'll see how that all shakes out. So here's the deal about this. He is now officially eligible for All-NBA. Woj reported, as my camera stops focusing for some reason, Woj reported on Friday that NBA teams got a memo from the league that said their salary cap projections still the same, still great. Everything's the same. If you remember, that was about $141 million. Should Tyrese Haliburton not make All-NBA with the current salary cap projections, his next max contract would be 5 years, $204.45 million. That is the lowest it can be. If he does make All-NBA, he would go up to 30% of the cap in the first season with the same raises for a grand total of $245.34 million. Remember, that's with the current cap projections. Good playoffs, good long playoffs, good gate revenue. Lots of stuff can change this. More money coming into the league for whatever reason. But as of now, Tyrese Haliburton is now eligible to make an All-NBA team and qualify for $41 million more over the next 5 years, and his cap hit would jump by $7 million next season. I've had his estimated cap hit in my salary sheet every time you've heard me talk about the Pacers as his 30% hit for months. He is now officially eligible to receive that. So I tweeted during the game, Tyrese Haliburton now eligible to make All-NBA. He's played 65 games. First, 3 replies. People are like, okay, whatever. He's not going to make it. What? Yes, he is. I don't even really know that I think it's debatable. I get why people have, seen this recent level from Haliburton and said, oh, that's not an All-NBA player. Probably not. The way he played in March probably isn't. He still entered Friday. It's lower than that, but Basketball Reference hasn't updated yet. Averaging 20.4 points and 11 assists per game. This terrible stretch everybody's referring to, let's just say post-All-Star, though I'd really say March is when this started. Since the All-Star break, he's averaging 18 and 10, really 17.6 and 9.6. 9.6 assists per game is still nearly the top number in the league. Even at a down stretch and when the Pacers offense isn't humming that much, he's still very close. Luka Doncic is at 9.8. Jokic is at 9. He'd be second, post-All-Star, second best passer in the league. The scoring obviously down, but as it stands, his 11 assists, which maintained through Friday, still tops in the league by over an assist per game. His scoring is still in the top 50 in the league and was way above that, top 40, and was way above that when he was absolutely rolling, when it was closer to 23, 24, and he was top 25. Even with this slump, he is a lock to me to make All-NBA. But here's why, right? If you just said, here's the pot of every player in the league, because remember this, All-NBA now is positionless. Tyrese Haliburton does not have to be a top 6 guard to make All-NBA. He has to be a top 15 player. That is a key distinction here. So this is actually ironic in the grand scheme of this season. A big discussion point around Haliburton in January and February, rightfully so, was the 65-game rule. Does it make sense for him? There's finances involved, blah, blah, blah. He said what he said about the rule. Well, now that he made it, it's actually helping him because a lot of people who would be in contention for All-NBA are not going to make it. I'm going to Google this list right now. I should have had it up already. But because he did make it, he is now has a leg up because a lot of guys who would have maybe gotten over him are not eligible for the award because they're not going to play in 65 games, and Haliburton is. The Sporting News, I read this a long time ago, so I know it's already there. Okay, here's just a list of guys who can't make it. Jamal Murray, Donovan Mitchell, Jimmy Butler, Julius Randle, Kristaps Porzingis, Kyrie Irving, Chris Middleton, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Joel Embiid, John Morant, Zach LaVine, Bradley Beal, all cannot make All-NBA. They're out. They are not eligible to make it. Devin Booker, very close. He's probably going to make it 65. Halliburton, of course, very close. Trae Young is about to become ineligible. Zion Williamson teetering on the line. He just hurt his finger, right? Like, it is close for a lot of stars. So Tyrese Haliburton doesn't have to be a top 15 player. It has to be like 20 to 22. I wouldn't say 5 guys who would have been All-NBA on that list I just read you. Maybe Butler, maybe Mitchell, maybe Randall. So definitely Embiid. So 4, right? He has to be a top 19 player. And he definitely has been that even with this recent stretch. So I understand people's hesitancy to say, is this an All-NBA player? Like, he hasn't played that good for last month. Well, one, I disagree with that. He definitely slumped. The threes were bad. The Pacers would have been better if he was playing better. There's no doubt about that. He was not like, he was like fringe all-star level in March. Probably not quite that level. But the totality of his season, I mean, people were having this guy in the MVP conversation early in the season for the first 2 months. I thought that was a little too juicy, but he was definitely a top 5 player, maybe the best offensive player in the NBA for the first month and a half to 2 months of this season. First impressions go a long way. He was playing at that kind of level. The in-season tournament's going to be on everybody's brains. People who don't even watch the Pacers that much can just see that he led the league in assists per game. He's going to make All-NBA. He's going to make it, barring something catastrophic happening, but he already is eligible for the award. Even if he doesn't play the rest of the season. So I'm of the opinion that he's basically a lock. I'll discuss this with someone else before the season ends, but I'd say 90% chance, at least, probably higher than that in my own brain, that Tyrese Haliburton makes All-NBA, and he's now officially eligible. $40 million can be his. He earned it. The Pacers negotiated it, and that is where this stands. Let's talk a little more about Pacers Thunder and the great night the Pacers had Friday night around the NBA to close out today's show. First, y'all, we're going to talk about Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement. Thanks to their IRA with a 3% match is offer good through April 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now from legal info, claim as of quarter 1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. 3% match on transfers subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. Back once again on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen for this lovely weekend bonus show. Tyrese Haliburton's night. He's the record holder. He's the 65-game man. Those storylines are in the rearview mirror. Pacers big game, huge game Sunday again. We'll do a whole show on that with Wes Goldberg at some point this weekend. Elsewhere in the NBA, Friday night, the Pacers are a smiling team. It wasn't all perfect. The Miami Heat on a back-to-back after playing the Sixers Thursday had to play in Houston against the Rockets, who previously were playing amazing. They did not play so amazing tonight. The Rockets lost to the Heat. 119-104 Heat win. So the Heat still right there behind the Pacers. One loss behind. Tiebreaker to be determined. Crazy game. But elsewhere, pretty good night for the Indiana Pacers. Blazers won, meaning they can catch the Raptors. Although the Raptors also won, funnily enough. The Bucks lost. They're probably out of striking distance with the Pacers, but maybe not. The Bulls beat the Knicks. The Bulls cannot catch the Pacers, but the Pacers want the Bulls to bury the Hawks before the final day of the season, and the Pacers want the Knicks to lose because they might be able to actually catch the Knicks now. We'll talk about the full breadth of the standings in a second, but the Bulls beat the Knicks, and they play 2 more times before the season ends, which is wild. And the biggest one by far, the Charlotte Hornets beat the Orlando Magic. That is unbelievable at this stage of the season. So now the Pacers are 1 win behind the 4 seed. Now they've played an extra game versus both the Knicks and Magic. So they're really 2 losses behind those teams. They're a game and a half behind 4 and 5. But it's not impossible anymore, right? The Magic and Knicks do not have the easiest schedules. They're going to be playing teams that are trying the rest of the way. The Magic have Bulls, Rockets, Bucks, 76ers, Bucks to close. That's tough. That is a tough schedule. All those teams playing for something. The Knicks have the Bulls the Pacers are huge Bulls fans the rest of the season. The Knicks close with Bucks, Bulls, Celtics, Nets, Bulls. Nets aren't going to try, but that's 4 tough games, right? It's not, yes, this game against the Heat is obviously so massive for the Pacers' playoff chances, but the 4 and 5 are not like unattainable for the Pacers, and they got great results for those things on Friday night, beyond their own win, of course. But they have to beat the Heat for a lot of this to matter. And the Sixers, here come the Sixers. Sixers have a back-to-back this weekend with Memphis and San Antonio, who both stink. The Sixers schedule's pretty easy. So dropping a back-to-back, potentially Embiid not playing in one, could be huge, of course, for the Pacers. We'll track all that. I don't want to do too much standings watch today. Beyond that, for the Pacers, Friday night was good because they won. And you know who was awesome in this game? 2 guys I want to talk about. One was TJ McConnell, who's just been so freaking good since the All-Star break. 16 and 10, 2 turnovers, plus 22. They couldn't get him out of the game. He was amazing in the first half. He busted up whatever the Thunder's coverage was. He made shots. He made the right passes. He made the bench's life easier in terms of their shots going in. He was fan-freaking-tastic. He keeps playing like this. It happened again where the game's hanging in the balance and the bench puts away the Thunder starters, even a shorthanded Thunder starters. But to close the game, massive stretch, and McConnell was brilliant once again. He was one of the Pacers' best players in this game. I think Kalen Cooper keeps saying it well. On one hand, it's great that TJ McConnell has been so good for the Pacers and such a lifesaver for them in some of these recent games. On the other hand, they shouldn't need to be saved as often as they have been by TJ McConnell. But hey, if you've got that good of a player on your bench ready to go and doing it, that's great news. And he's been playing extremely well. The bench in general was good. Jalen Smith hurt his ankle. Seems like he's okay. But he was very good in his 12 and a half minutes. Obi Toppin was making shots. He was very good in his 25 minutes. The bench in general was great. But Pascal Siakam really up for the task. The Thunder didn't really have anybody to guard him. They're small. And Gordon Hayward got hurt mid-game, so he could only play 13 minutes. And Lou Dort was on Haliburton. So the size for the Thunder just wasn't really there. They either had to play a second big on Siakam or just really gimmicky lineups. And Siakam, 8 for 10, got to the line 5 times, 21 points on 10 shots. Smooth, crushing plays from him all night. They went to the post-ups. If you listen to Friday's show that we talked about, him and McConnell were both awesome, which eased the burden on Haliburton only taking 8 shots. But, I mean, he helped them be awesome with his 11 assists. And most guys who played in general were pretty good. Turner had foul trouble, but returned from injury with 16 points. Aaron Nesmith made 4 threes. He kind of had a huge one to stabilize in the third quarter when the Thunder got it close again. Doug McDermott made 2 threes. Doug McDermott played over 12 minutes. He played in both halves, plus 14. That surprised me, but he did well in those minutes. Isaiah Jackson, every time he fills in, he's good. He was once again good, although too many fouls. So Pacers get it done. They needed to win this game. They had an opportunity handed to them against a good opponent, thanks to the injury report, and they did it. They did not do it Wednesday. They have not always taken advantage of these games, but they did it this time. They set themselves up for an epic, epic, epic game Sunday night. I can't stress it enough, and you'll hear more about it tomorrow. But tiebreakers, 3-way tiebreakers, controlling your own destiny, all of this is at stake in one game. Had it not been, I don't want to ruin it. I have a big take on this game that you'll hear on the next Lockdown Pacers, which will come out before Pacers Heat. I'm hoping at least 24 hours, if not more, before that game, so it can breathe and you guys can listen to it and digest the information. Hope you guys enjoyed this short weekend show. Tyrese Haliburton made it a necessity, and so did the rest of the NBA with their results. Back tomorrow or Sunday or whatever, talking more Pacers. And I believe after Pacers Heat, Zach Pearson from Pacers Press will join us to talk about the game, what happened, what it means for the Pacers, the rest of their season, etc. So you're getting great info with great guests here on Locked On Pacers. Thank you guys a ton for listening. I enjoyed doing this weekend bonus show. Have a wonderful weekend. Boilers, it's your day, Saturday. Boiler fans, good luck to you. Don't stress too much. Thank you all for listening. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you soon.